Ladies and gentlemen, there's a moment often quiet, often unexpected, when someone realizes they let go of something rare, not because you stopped loving them, but because you finally started loving yourself enough to walk away. And in that silence, in the stillness of your absence, something begins to grow inside them. It's not anger, it's not confusion, it's regret, not the loud, dramatic kind, but the kind that lives in late night thoughts, in empty conversations, in the memory of the way you loved them when they didn't even know how to love you back. Tonight, we're not talking about the heartbreak that breaks you. We're talking about the kind that teaches them what it feels like to lose a woman they never thought would leave. This is about the power of moving on and how he'll regret losing you every day of his life. He got used to you being there, not because he took the time to appreciate it every day, but because your presence was reliable. You were the message that always came through, the hand that always reached out first, the voice that soothed him even when he didn't deserve to be soothed. You showed up. On his good days, you celebrated him. On his bad ones, you protected him from his own self-doubt. In the background of everything he did, there you were. Constant, steady, faithful. He didn't have to wonder if you'd answer. He didn't worry about whether you'd still love him when he failed, or when he got quiet, or when he stopped trying for a moment. You made it easy to fall into comfort because your love had no terms. You were patient beyond reason, forgiving beyond logic. And the more dependable you became, the more invisible your effort seemed. The more you gave, the less he noticed he was receiving. There's a dangerous comfort that forms when someone knows your heart is so kind it can stretch to cover the cracks they won't fix. They don't fear losing you because they believe you love them enough to carry the weight of the relationship alone. You were consistent in a way that made him forget how hard that is to find. Your calls, your support, your forgiveness, he saw them as normal. Routine, but nothing about what you gave was normal. You were offering a version of love most people only dream of. What he didn't understand was that your consistency wasn't weakness, it was choice. Every day you chose to love him, to show up, to believe in something that wasn't always easy to believe in. You weren't there out of habit. You were there because your heart was invested. But consistency is not the same as permanence. It's not a promise to stay when your effort goes unnoticed. You weren't a guarantee. You were a gift. The truth is, he mistook your consistency for something that required no maintenance, like a light that just stays on forever. He didn't realize that even the brightest lights burn out when no one checks if the switch still works. He didn't check in with your heart. He didn't ask if you were okay giving so much. He didn't stop to wonder what it might be costing you to keep holding it all together. And over time, something changed, not in how much you loved him, but in how tired you became from doing it alone. That's what people like him never see until it's too late, the slow erosion of someone's spirit. It's not loud. It doesn't happen in a dramatic explosion. It happens in moments when your messages get shorter, when you stop bringing up the things that matter because they never seem to matter to him. When you realize that you're no longer fighting for the relationship, you're fighting not to lose yourself in it. He never imagined you'd leave, not really. He thought your loyalty was endless, that your heart would find new ways to forgive. He saw your strength as something he could rely on without ever needing to refill it. But strength isn't infinite. Even the strongest people crumble when they're the only ones holding the weight. And when you finally walked away, it wasn't out of spite or anger. It was the quiet decision of someone who realized they couldn't be the only one showing up. Now he feels your absence in the moments he used to feel your comfort, when he has a bad day and there's no message from you telling him it's going to be okay. When something good happens and he reaches for his phone only to remember you're not there, he begins to notice all the ways you used to care, all the little things that weren't so little. Your consistency is no longer his comfort, it's his memory. a memory he'll play over and over in his mind, trying to figure out how he let something so rare feel so regular. He will learn, maybe slowly, maybe all at once, that your kind of consistency doesn't come back once it's gone. That being someone's safe place is not a role to be taken for granted. That love given every day is the most powerful kind, and the easiest kind to lose when it's not appreciated. You didn't stop being consistent. You just stopped being consistent for someone who treated it like it didn't matter, and now he'll remember you not as the woman who stayed, but as the one who always showed up until she didn't. It doesn't knock. It doesn't make a scene. It doesn't scream, "Look at what you lost." Regret is far more subtle than that. It waits quietly, patiently, in the quiet after the chaos. It creeps in during the in-between moments, when no one else is around to distract the mind, when the noise of daily life fades and the stillness becomes a mirror. It doesn't show up in the middle of a party or when they're surrounded by people. It shows up when they're alone with their thoughts, when the person they took for granted isn't there anymore, and suddenly the absence is louder than their presence ever was. They don't realize it when they're busy chasing the temporary, when they're posting photos, out with friends, laughing, scrolling, swiping. They don't feel the full weight of what they've done when everything is still new and exciting. That's the trick regret plays. It doesn't confront them when they're in motion. It waits for the pause. It begins in the small, unexpected places. A memory triggered by a song on the radio, a familiar scent on a stranger passing by, an inside joke no one else understands. It's the moment they start a message and realize there's no one to send it to. The urge to share something funny, something meaningful, something painful, and realizing the one person who always listened, who always got them, is no longer there. Regret doesn't show up wearing guilt. It shows up as longing, as realization, as the quiet ache of knowing they had something real, something grounding, and let it slip through their hands, not because it wasn't good enough, but because they didn't know how to hold it. They thought you'd always be there, that your heart was on reserve, waiting for them to make up their mind. They thought they could take their time, that you'd wait forever, but regret begins the day they realize you didn't. It lives in the unanswered questions. Did you still love them when you left? Were you hurting while smiling through the silence? Did they push you too far, too many times? And more than anything, could it have been different if they had shown up sooner? Regret doesn't bring answers. It only amplifies the questions left behind. It whispers in the early hours of the morning, when the world is still dark and their mind is wide awake. That's when the replay starts. The what-ifs, the flashbacks, the moments they dismissed at the time that now seem monumental, the text they ignored, the conversation they brushed off, the look in your eyes when you were quietly slipping away. It all comes back, not with drama but with weight, and that weight is heavier than they ever imagined. It isn't just about missing you, it's about missing themselves when they were with you, the way you made them feel understood, the way they could be vulnerable without being judged, the way your presence brought clarity. Regret shows them what they lost, but more painfully, what they could have become if they had just chosen to meet you halfway. They'll look around and realize that none of the new faces feel the same, that no conversation reaches the depth they once had with you, that no one asks the kind of questions that made them feel truly seen. It's not just about missing love, it's about missing home, and you were home, not because you were perfect, but because you loved them with an honesty and intention they weren't ready for. The silence starts to echo. The same silence they once interpreted as peace now feels like emptiness. They'll scroll through old messages, play old voicemails, revisit old photos, not to relive the past, but to try and touch the feeling of what once was. And the more they do, the more the realization sinks in, you're not coming back. And even if you did, they know now. They aren't the same person you left. They're the version of themselves after losing you. That's what regret does. It doesn't knock down the door. It seeps through the cracks. It sits beside them in the silence, and it doesn't need to say much, because deep down they already know they had something rare. And they let it go, and that thought, that's the part that lingers in silence. You didn't just love him, you reflected him, the real him, not the polished version he presented to the world, but the vulnerable, messy, complex version he tried to hide. You saw beyond the charm, past the confidence, into the places even he hadn't dared to explore, and instead of turning away, you stayed. You offered a type of love that didn't just comfort him, it challenged him. It didn't just soothe him, it revealed him. You were the mirror he didn't ask for but needed. You showed him the parts of himself that needed healing. You didn't criticize or condemn. You simply held up a reflection. Every time he looked into your eyes, he saw who he could be, not just who he was. Your presence reminded him of the potential he didn't know how to reach on his own. And that kind of love, it's rare. It's not soft or easy. It's the kind of love that demands growth, not because you asked for it, but because your very existence made stagnation uncomfortable. When he got lost, you were the compass. When he doubted himself, you believed louder than his fears. You reminded him that he was capable of more honesty, more depth, more maturity. But sometimes when someone isn't ready to rise, they start to resent the one who sees their higher self. Not because they don't appreciate the love, but because the mirror becomes unbearable when it reflects what they are not yet willing to face. You were patient, you didn't push, you simply gave him space to evolve. You stood by with open arms and an open heart, hoping he would meet you at the level where you both could build something real. But not everyone is ready for that kind of partnership. Some people are more comfortable staying the same than stepping into who they could be, even if that means losing the one person who ever truly saw them. He thought you loved him for who he was, and you did. But he missed the deeper truth. You loved him for everything he could be if he dared to choose growth, if he dared to be honest, if he dared to face the discomfort of transformation. Your love wasn't the kind that enabled his bad habits or fed his ego. It was the kind that asked him to rise, not for you, but for himself, and that's what made you powerful. You didn't just offer comfort, you offered accountability. He may have mistaken your insight for pressure. He may have labeled your emotional depth as intensity, but one day he'll understand. He'll meet someone who smiles at his surface, and he'll miss the way you looked into his soul. He'll be praised for what he pretends to be, and he'll miss how you cherished what was real. The way you saw his hurt, not just his humor, the way you noticed his withdrawal, not just his words. You were more than love, you were reflection, the kind that strips away illusion and invites someone to confront who they are. And the irony is, he fell for you because of how you made him feel, safe, inspired, awake. But he didn't realize that those feelings didn't just come from your love. They came from what your love revealed inside of him. When you left, it wasn't just your absence he felt. It was the silence of not seeing himself clearly anymore, the fog that returned when your mirror was no longer there. He became unsure again, not because he lost validation, but because he lost the person who anchored him to a higher version of himself. You brought clarity, and now he walks in distortion. You brought depth, and now everything feels shallow. And maybe, just maybe, he's come to understand what he truly lost. It wasn't just affection or attention. It wasn't just connection or chemistry. It was the one person who didn't just love him as he was, but believed he could be so much more. And that belief, that reflection, it's gone now, because you weren't just love. You were his mirror. You don't need to scream. You don't need to make a scene, write long texts explaining your pain, or beg someone to understand the damage they caused. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is to simply walk away quietly with your dignity intact, with no bitterness in your heart, just a calm, unwavering decision to stop investing in what no longer invests in you. Moving on isn't about pretending you weren't hurt. It's not about acting like the love didn't matter. It's about reaching a place where your peace matters more than their attention, where you finally stop breaking your own heart to keep someone else comfortable. It's about realizing that no apology, no closure, no last conversation can give you what self-respect and emotional clarity can. There's a strength in walking away without needing to be right. There's power in choosing yourself, not out of anger, but out of wisdom. Because you've finally understood that staying in a place where you feel unseen, undervalued, or unloved isn't loyalty, it's self-abandonment, and you're done abandoning yourself for someone who never chose you in the way you deserved. If you've ever questioned your decision to walk away, don't. If you've ever wondered whether he regrets it, he does. Maybe not today, maybe not in a way you'll ever see, but in the quiet corners of his life, he feels it. Because when you leave with grace, with strength, and with yourself worth intact, you don't just leave the room. You leave a mark. Let him sit with the silence. Let him feel the weight of your absence. While you go forward, not bitter, not broken, but more you than you've ever been. And remember, the most unforgettable women aren't the loudest. They're the ones who walked away and never had to look back. Thank you.